Good morning. Okay. I understand. I mean, it is the second day of the convention. It is Belgium. There are beers, and it is in the morning. I mean, come on, I understand. I'm Erik Wauters. I'm a partner of Effective Business Solutions, Belgian partner, not too far from here. And I'm a partner at Cloud Ready Software. And actually a proud colleague now of Mr. Mibuso, Luc van Dijk, who actually mailed me a few weeks ago and specifically asked, look, Erik, please, next time, do not change my title slide. And I was quite offended. Dude, I never change your title slide. Never do that. Topic of today is not AL development. It's basically development with a certain tool called VSCode. I guess by now you know that it's quite around the corner that we will be doing development in this great tool. But this tool can do a lot more, in my opinion, that has been showed until today. Now, a question. Who of you has never worked with VSCode? And clap hands. No, just once. Else is a lot of people that didn't work with it. So, again, who? Never? Never worked with VSCode. So, let me introduce you. This is VSCode. Nothing more than that. No, obviously this is not VSCode. This is a guitar. Would you be able to play this guitar? Of course you can. There are strings in that, and you can play. Would it sound good? Probably not really. For this guitar, VSCode, to finish, you probably need some more stuff. And that is exactly what you can do with VSCode. You can change, configure, and put together a tool set around this great tool to fit your needs, how you want to play it, how you want to work with the tool. And you can make it exactly as you want. And that's basically what we are going to do a little bit today. Rock and roll with that tool. So what is VSCode? A lightweight tool. VS is not Visual Studio. Yes, it is Visual Studio, but more like the family name Visual Studio. Basically, this is a lightweight tool. Why Visual Studio definitely is not. Multi-platform. You can do OS development or development on Mac OS, which you might have seen yesterday, I think, in a session. Which key strength of a VSCode is definitely the extensibility. And basically a lot of languages that it supports. Okay, let's dive into that. How does it look like? It's this. It has a menu, not really the Visual Studio menu that we have these zillion ribbons and buttons. Well, you have a simple menu, you're not confused. There is an activity bar to basically easily go to and navigate to the different parts of Visual Studio Code. A status bar, please do not underestimate the power of the status bar, which is quite good. A red status bar, it indicates that something is not good, basically. There is a text editor. Well, Visual Studio Code is a text editor, so luckily we have most space there for edit our text. And there is the command palette. That's where your menu is, not the entire ribbon and you have to find and click and use mouse and stuff like that. No, there is a command palette. You can use very efficiently your keyboard to go wherever and execute whatever you want to execute. And you will see that hopefully a little bit today as well. So, working with VSCode means you put all these things together and be as productive and efficient as at all possible. Which means, first of all, which I'm not going to show, but it will be very clear during, hopefully, the demos, you will work with files. There is no object designer. No object designer. You will have a directory, which is called a workspace, and everything in that directory is your project and basically your app that you will be creating. You have the command palette. You can do lots of configurations, source control integration, debugger, everything that you expect from a development tool. And we'll start with source control integration. Out of the box, you have source control integration, and you all know what that is, right? Right? Only a few people know what source control integration is. Okay, let me explain you a little bit. You need to know who changed what, when, and why. Who, what, when, why. Yeah? Are you source controlling your CAL at the moment? Who does not source control its developments at the moment? Quite a few. Quite a few, and that is normal because in our not normal. This is not normal. This is development. It should be source controlled, let's say. But it's difficult. In VSCode, it's integrated, so it's going to be easy. And you know what it is? You need to know who to blame. So if somebody messes up, you can deal with that. Yes, there is an integrated connection basically with Git. You all know Git. Git is like, basically built from an open source platform and is now the most used source control management system there is. Now there is a connection between VSCode and Git, only the connection. It is not integrated. So yeah, we'll go into that in a minute. Not only Git is supported, there are some other SCM providers that is supported that you can add by installing an extension. So if you're already on VSTS, yes, you can still use your VSTS. Now for this Git support, which we will show a little bit today, it's basically just invoking Git. If you have not installed Git support, then yeah, well, there's nothing to invoke. So it's just that it's not that you install VS Code that you can just use Git. No, you need to install some more, which is basically with this URL, download it, installed it, press next, 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 quite a lot of nexts, next, and then finish. Then you need to configure it. You need to know who you are. You can fake it a little bit. I'm Waldo. I'm not Erik Wauters in this case. So you can, if you check in, nobody knows who you are. But anyway, you need to let you know, and there are the commands basically to configure your user on your machine. And then you're good to go. And from that moment, Git can be connected, or the other way around. VS Code, when it runs a Git command, will basically able to run that command. But still, in your workspace, you need to enable Git. It's not that you just create a workspace that all of a sudden there's Git. You need to initialize a Git repository. You might have seen, if you've done that, there's a .git folder in your workspace, which is hidden. True? Yeah, it is hidden. That usually means that your Git is being initialized, and yes, you can basically execute all the Git commands for your repository. The easy way to start with that, if you create a completely new thing, is, if you are having a remote repository is basically GitHub, an example of that, where you put your source in the cloud or whatever. The local repository is the one that you have on your local development machine. The two needs to be synced, and that's all part of basically Git support. Now, to set it up, most easy thing is just create a repository in GitHub and clone that back to your development machine. A less easy way to set it up is create a local repository and sync it, create a remote and sync it up to GitHub. That's a little bit more cumbersome. So I don't like that. So I usually just create it in GitHub and clone back down. There are a few things here, which is Git terminology, like you have a repository, which is basically the database of your source control. You have the remote, which is the GitHub part, the cloud part, where everything is basically synced. You have the clone, you can clone down to your own machine, and so on. I'm not going to go too deep into that, because basically there is a really good session about that at 1:30 of Søren and Jonas, who is going to basically rock and roll with source control management. Let's clone a repo. So let's just assume that we have some kind of GitHub in the cloud from a strange guy, and he's got a really useless app that was ever being created. And you say, well, 36 commits, yeah, that must be really good app. So the only thing you need to do is copy that URL, open VSCode, and open the command palette, Ctrl-Shift-P. We'll go into the command palette in a minute. Clone a repository. Yeah, that's the URL. And then I need to indicate some kind of folder. I will take this folder. And now it's downloading the sources to this folder. I open the repository, done. Basically now I have created an offline local development environment for this app, and the remote is all basically already connected. So I can start syncing up to GitHub if I would like and are able to do that. Now this is an AL workspace, let's say. This is an app. So I need to download some symbols. Let me do that. And done. I'm ready to go. Cool. Now, you're developing on that, and probably multiple people is developing on that, so you might run into conflicts. If you both change the same object and you sync it up, probably, maybe there are conflicts. And also that is integrated, you can solve the conflict, kind of like, looks like this, and when, solved, and then you can basically just continue. One remark on the git ignore. This is a file where you can add basically files that you do not want to add into your repository. And I think it makes sense for AL development to not include the app files. You can generate them by compiling, so you don't need to sync it up to your Git. Well, yes, it makes sense, and then again, for dependent extensions, you might want to have that still in your repository. So do what you want. There is a .git ignore, and you can manage that like that. There is a command palette. So now we have something to develop. Let's develop. And let's start a little bit with the command palette. And I've got here an MD file, which describes basically what I want to show. Let me show that in a nicer way. So, very easily set the command palette, Ctrl-Shift-P. Let's not spend too much time on that. Ctrl-Shift-P is the one shortcut that you will use a lot. I have heard that F1 works as well, but for some reason I always use Ctrl-Shift-P. And then you can start typing, like change language mode. And look at that. I type just 4 characters, and it finds that still, while the characters are not like attached to each other. So there is a really neat and fast way to search for this. And this does not only work in command palette, it also works in IntelliSense and all that. So that is really nice. Now this is basically the command palette, because there is this kind of arrow, or what is that? A bracket. What is it? I don't know what that is. Greater than sign. That makes it the entire command being searchable for commands to actually execute something, to give it a job, like merge or push or sync or whatever. If I remove that bracket, I've got something else. Basically, I can search for files. I can search for symbols. Yeah. So that's basically the Control-P. If I press Control-P, there is no bracket. If I put a bracket there manually, I'm back in the command palette. Yeah? Basically, there is just one way for you to search for different things. If you put that kind of bracket, you can search for that those comments. If you remove that and you place a question mark, you have an idea on what you can search for as well. And what I really like, for instance, is that I can search for symbols. If I press a hashtag, and then some kind of symbol like a table, and it's going to search my workspace for a symbol that includes the letters that I just have given in. And I can easily navigate to some kind of code unit in this case, just some notification. It opens the file, I can start developing. That, in my opinion, is really cool. And I see a lot of you not giving a damn, actually. You can search for files as well. You see, I've got quite some files in my workspace. This is my workspace, right? That is one folder and quite some files and subfolders and stuff like that. You can search for any kind of file by just removing all brackets, and it starts looking for files. So it's really easy. It will look for files also in subdirectories, right? So looking it up or browsing through your workspace is really easy using this command palette. Next, configuration. I can configure the bejesus out of VS Code. About all little detail you can configure. And let me go into that. Configuration, and I've got a cheat sheet for that as well. And let me show you that a nicer way. So, first of all, you have configuration files. Now, every configuration is done in JSON files. So, it's not like if you just click here on a menu, you get a nicely form, like Thomas would say, with checkboxes. No. You basically get a JSON file. So, if I open this, if I actually click it, then you get a JSON file that you can edit. The left part are your default settings. The right part are the actual settings that you have changed. Yeah. So the default settings, obviously, I cannot change. But this is, I can not edit this, but I can search this. Basically, I can see here all the settings that I would be able to change. On the right part are the ones that I actually have changed. So I have two, whatever that is, we'll go into that in 52 minutes and 20 seconds. And I have here a zoom level. Cool, that's nice. So there are shortcuts for zoom, the Control plus, for instance, and that actually works. And if you see now on the zoom level here, basically zooming means updating the settings file, saving it. And it is being applied on, let's not zoom that much, because the screen is quite good. Okay, you see that I have some other settings here, which is not really that important. And I can obviously also change the theme here. Let's not do that. One setting that I tend to do is what I don't really like at this moment, but that's a personal thing. It's this is an AL file. And you see all these references. But this is one reference, this has two references. This is what is called the code lens. This is a personal opinion. I'm not saying that you should do that, but personally, I never look at that. If I want to see the references, I can look at the references with the shortcut. So you can easily change that. I basically can choose like, okay, I do not want the code lens. And now you see here that I make typos. That also these settings files and basically all settings and JSON, sorry, has got IntelliSense as well. It is a language and it is a development environment. So yes, you have IntelliSense into your settings as well. So I want to do this editor code lens and I want to set that to false. I save that, I go back into my AL file and my references are gone. One disadvantage is I might like this for PowerShell. So now I basically just switch it off for all my languages. Well, let's not do that. You can have language-specific settings as well. And you can do that by, look at that, a snippet. Snippet in JSON files. I have a language-specific setting for the AL language in this case. And I can basically just copy or move this setting to the language specific setting. And now I have set it up for me as a user. For this language, I will not have code length. Yeah. Like it? Not much. It will get more complete. Okay, you have seen on the top right, you see user settings. I can have workspace settings as well. I don't have any at the moment. Now these workspace settings are, as it says, settings specifically for this workspace. Like for this project, I don't want a debugger. It's a challenge. Something like that. It's going to save that somewhere, and by just selecting this, it basically created here a settings.json within my workspace, within the .VSCode folder of my workspace. That's indicating, okay, this is a specific settings file for only this project. While the user settings, they were saved under my profile, app data roaming profile. So it will live with me, whatever I live on this network, basically. Okay. So far for settings. We have shortcuts as well, and we can change shortcuts. One of the remarks I've heard is, well, I hate the shortcuts of VS Code. Well, that's your right, but you can change them. Why not? I'm so used to having like F4 for deleting a line, F3 for inserting a line. Well, you can search for the insert line above. You can press the pencil. You can change it to F3. Or for delete line, you can change it to F4. Done. And now you can simply use F3 and F4 and make it your preferred keyboard shortcuts. You can completely mimic CAL if you really, really like that. Yeah. Okay, what can you do more? That's snippeting. You can create your own snippets. Please do that. You need to do that. It will speed up your development a lot. Now, on the same place here, I can go to the user snippets. And of course, I have language-dependent snippets. It doesn't make sense that I can put a JSON snippet in AL development and a JavaScript snippet in PowerShell, although that makes sense. Everything makes sense with PowerShell. So let's just assume I want to have some snippets, my own snippets for AL development. And then it creates basically an al.json file on a certain place, if you can find it out as well. And that's again on the roaming profile. It creates a language name, in this case al.json, which are your snippets. Now just assume, and let me open this beautiful AL file. Just assume you don't like the default table snippet that comes with AL. And there are a few reasons not to like that. Maybe you don't like the fact that it creates triggers that you don't use. And hopefully, you don't like it because of this global variable that is placed there in every single snippet, which I really don't like personally. So let's try to change that. Now, the difficult way is to start building this into a snippet. But there is an easier way. You can basically find out where Microsoft snippets are. You just go to your user profile. And there is a VS Code folder. There's an extensions folder. There's a Microsoft AL folder. And in that, there's a snippet folder. Those are the snippets that comes with the product, with the extension of AL development. You can change them. Don't. Because next time you update this extension, you lose your snippets. Do not do that. Just open the table 1, copy it, to your own AL-JSON one, and I will put it here at the end, and you can see that I have been trying out stuff. Okay, I will put it in the beginning. And then you can start to change it. I don't like these triggers, and I definitely don't like, I want that bracket still, but I don't like this global variable. Done. I will call it something different. And done. I save that, and now I should be able to delete this and use my snippet, which is a much cleaner one. You can very easily, it's a matter of minutes to create your own snippets. If you see that you're always changing the same things on the default snippets, create your own snippets. It will speed up development. And there is a lot you can do with snippets. I don't know if you noticed, but let me just do this again. I can tap between different parts of the snippets. These are placeholders. And yeah, there is some syntax on that, but it's very easy to learn. You see here, placeholder number 1, placeholder number 2. I give it a default, and basically that makes you tap over the different ones. More than, you can do this as well. Yeah, once you are out of the tab sequence, there is no way to get back in the tab sequence. Either reinsert your snippet. So tab a name, and you see here that I'm changing 2 things at the same time. So that is possible as well. By simply naming that, you see, the same way. Same placeholder, same number. Okay. You can do more. I've got the code unit snippet here, and if I do that, you see that it inserts automatically my file name. So if you have a decent file name convention, which I definitely did not apply, you would be able to speed up a little bit like that as well. I just didn't manage to exclude the extension just yet. Maybe there is a way, I don't know. Last but not least, which I really like, and let me put that code unit back. I might have a repeat, the repeat loop. And you see here, this is maybe my cust, and again, the same placeholders, and there is a choice. So you can include choices. So in this case, I obviously definitely want to do this. No. Okay, it's good that you're still awake. Okay, so yeah, you can do a lot with snippets. And apparently I have been doing a little bit too much with snippets. So let me remove this weirdo so I can recreate that weirdo again in the view demos. Okay, like that. Those are the most commonly things that you can configure on VSCode. So you have a settings.json, which basically is either your workspace or your user settings placed in a certain way. You can configure whatever behavior you have in VSCode. On top of that, you have the keyboards, you have the language, the keyboard shortcuts, sorry, the language snippets, and that's how you can make it like it is. The snippets, it's not just text. It's more than that. You can have these placeholders, tab sequence, you have multiple placeholders, so you have a multi-cursor kind of thing that you can edit multiple things at the same time. You have these variables, I've shown you the file name, but you also have a selection variable. So just imagine that you select a part of a word and then you want to activate a snippet. Well, with this word, you can work within your snippet as well. Some editing hacks. So while you are using VSCode, you might want to be a little bit efficient. So here are a few shortcuts. I'm not going to show them all. Just a few shortcuts that can make your life a little bit easier. And there are a few beautiful ones. Like if you have an MD file like this, I basically like to see it side by side. If I edit it this way, and this is how you edit it, I might want to see how it looks like. And there was the Control K. Control K is expects always another letter to be pressed. You see now the status bar, like, hey, Control K was pressed. I'm waiting for you for another key. If I press V, it doesn't do anything. Okay, let me try again. That was just a V. And now I get my MD file side by side. This is much nicer to see whatever I'm doing. Now, that is not that important, but I wanted to just have that side by side. So let me go into this code unit here. You probably know the F12 to drill into definition. This is normal. We even had that with CAL, but in CAL, when we did that, we couldn't go back. Right? Yeah. I can tell you couldn't go back. To go back, and especially you couldn't go back to a previous object and stuff like that. Now we have the Alt and the arrows. And you can go and navigate however you want. So I can go back to another object, and I can go back and back and back and back and back. So with the Alt and the arrows left and right, this is really beautiful. So you can investigate the code, go in, and go to definition and back and back and back and back, and go back, and yeah, basically go back. So I want to go back here. What you can do here as well is, yeah, peek instead of already go into that, and some more. Let's not go too deep into that. With the Alt-Shift here, and up, you copy stuff. And I luckily had my F4, so I can definitely just remove that again. The Control T is also a really nice one, but what I really want to show you is this selection of lines. Control I, if I'm not mistaken, selects a complete line. But if you do that multiple times, you have multiple lines that you're selecting. Now, in this case, I'm selecting an integration event. You know that in an integration event, first you have the attribute, and then you need to define the procedure. A procedure needs to have the begin and the end. And by default, it looks like this. You have basically 5 lines of code, which actually is just one definition of an integration event or a business event. Now, I cannot put, I think, the attribute there. But if I select these and press Ctrl-Shift-P, I can join the lines easily. And now I still have the same. It still compiles, but at least now I have a decent definition of an integration event. If I can do that on everything, but let's not do that. Yeah, Vieco likes it, obviously. Okay, multi-selection thing. It's really nice. You don't have to stick with only one cursor. You have multiple cursors. And you can just place them by pressing the Alt key and start clicking. So if you want to really be crazy, you can just press a number of cursors here and start typing at the same time. This is obviously not useful, but if I press my cursors here, I might want to add a caption which is empty at this point, and go from there. Yeah, I hope you like that. I mean, this is very good. Just okay. Imagine that you are adding fields, and you have like 20 fields, and you need to add. Oh, I forgot caption, or oh, I forgot the application area. Easy. Just select all these places. Once you add the application area, you don't have to do it once and then copy it over and messing up your formatting. No, this is really, really nice. And changing, for instance, your symbol as well. I've got a symbol here, editing hacks, which is a function. I can have a peek. Well, this is a function that is being created here, apparently. And I want to rename that function. Now here I call the function, and I basically have defined it in some other place, in another object. With the symbol F2, I have a rename symbol, and I can change it like I'm going to call it editing hacks 2. If I now peek, you will see that I still have 3 references. All the occasions of this one symbol has been changed on all all the things and all the files. So that is really also, I use that a lot. Naming is really important, and the tool gives you a really good way to rename. If naming is important, rename is probably also very, very important. Now, be sure that the F2 is definitely something completely different than the Control F2, which is basically just going to select all instances of this text within your file. You can do that. Let me just try something out. This, and we call it here Waldo. But now, if I see the references, I do not have anything. So that is not good, right? You need to have this other one. This is also a really nice one. Just assume that I want to rename cust only in this procedure. I do not want to rename it, or not cust, maybe this code unit name here, and not in the entire file. Then I can use Ctrl D, which selects the next instance, and I can keep pressing Ctrl D until I've got all of them. Then I can change it. And obviously this change is accepted because I basically changed the variable and how I call it. So that is really, really nice. I find at least. Okay, let me close this all down. And let's see if we can do more. Like debugging. I was told yesterday that debugging was showed, so I'm not going to show that too deep, but there was one thing that I was told. I was not at this session, for my apologize, but there was one thing that was not shown, that is actually conditional formatting. Oh, it's conditional debugging. So what you can do here, you can set a breakpoint. Now this code unit is something that you should never do, basically. It's subscribing to the on-after login. It will basically loop 100 silly loops and assign a silly variable 100 times when you log in. It's just to slow down my demos. I would be completely before time. So what you can do here is you can put a breakpoint and you can make it conditional. So edit breakpoint, I only want to be here if my value equals 60. Instead of 100 times into this loop, it's only going to do, yeah, it's not going to do that when you press Ctrl F5, which I now pressed. That is out of, yeah, I always press Ctrl F5 just to avoid the debugger. Not that I want to avoid it, I just want to consciously use it. Okay. So let me see if it's going to stop there. It's blinking here, so probably it did something. And you see the value is 60. You can obviously add that to the watch. And the nice thing is there is a complete call stack even into C-side. CAL. Good. That was the debugger. Must have been the shortest demo of a debugger of all time. Let's go into some interesting extensions. As I said, we did the configuration part of VSCode, but there is a lot more that we can do. We can extend VSCode, and that's basically, yeah, adding more functionality to be more productive. One of the extensions that we all know is the AL extension, the language extension of Microsoft for us supporting AL. But there are other interesting extensions. Now, what is an extension? Some short theory. Yeah, provides VS Code for more functionality and runs as separate services, so it does not really interfere with each other on top of Node.js. It can include languages like Microsoft AL, but also debuggers, themes, snippets, colorizers, icon packs, and functionality, many more, but also functionality. Now within VS Code, obviously you can search for extensions, you can add them, you can delete them, you can disable them. There is a complete management of extensions. You can download them from the marketplace, or you can just get a physics file from someone and install that manually. Good, that was a theory. Let's go into practice. What I think are interesting extensions. Now, first of all, snippets. I hope you all like snippets. I like snippets. I think they rock. You can really use snippets for being really productive. And there is a snippet creator. I basically did it completely the slow way. Again, probably for time filling reasons. But just let me show you another one. There is, let's just say, did you ever create a wizard in AL? Wow. This is about the minimum wizard that you can get. And let me just show you that it's, yeah, some code, let's say. There is a lot of that you need to take care of. You need like the visibility of the groups. You need this media repository stuff. You need to have the banners on top. You need your buttons on the bottom right. There's a lot to take into account. Now, what you would do is, let's just say we want to turn this into a snippet. And what if there was some kind of smart guy that had created an extension, and I can show you the extension. It is the snippet creator over here, which you can basically use. It adds, there is a contribution, it adds create snippet comment, and what you can do is you can close your file and completely be slow now. Oh, come on. Oh. So this one, Ctrl-Shift-P, I want to have my comment palette. I want to create a snippet, and there it goes. I can now ask or give in the language. I give it a name, Waldo snippet. I can give the shortcut Waldo snippet, whatever, and a description, Waldo description. And there you go. Now let's have a look at our snippets, and it should have created here a Waldo snippet, which we are able to use. If I remove this one, here it is, and it adds my snippet. This is really cool. In my opinion, you need to change it a little bit because best practice is that you press. Yeah, this is one indent, so you need to like use a tab to indent that. So you need to change that. You can then again easily change that because there is also a shortcut Alt-Shift where you can block comment. Like if you want to have a block comment, I say block selection. Yeah, so I can just change all this in \T, and I would be able to change this in completely the wrong shortcut. This one in \T, and so on. So you can quite easily turn this into a decent snippet. All right, snippet creator. Feature is create a snippet. There is a GitHub connection as well. So the this is the one. So there's a GitHub extension which basically connects to your GitHub. Quite like it. Don't really use it in practice at this moment because I just found out. But what you have is a lot of browse possibilities. Like I want to have my issues and browse my open issues. And it will look at your remote. Should look at my remote. Okay, I have one issue, and now I can open that issue, and it will open the browser. But it knows the connection, right? Your remote is basically the GitHub account. That is where it is connecting to. So I have one issue here that I just closed. No, I didn't close that. All files are in root. Yeah, that doesn't really make sense. That's absolutely true. That doesn't make sense. I might want to change that later on. Okay, there's a lot more on the GitHub. I'm not going to show you all. You can create, merge, and all that for pull request. There was a complete pull request management, basically. It opens the browser on number occasions. the thing is, it does it quite nice. I just don't know why I want to do that. Like if I have here my cursor and I can open the GitHub, open the file, and then it opens that file on GitHub. But yeah, but I see it already. Why would I want to open that on GitHub? Which is not opening on GitHub at the moment. Okay, yeah, let's not go too deep into that. We can't go deep into that and didn't open. Okay, Git history. That is a really nice one, and that is one that I do use. And that is, yeah, getting whatever history that you have been checking in. And one thing that I want to show you on that is the Git log. It's basically a representation of all your check-ins in some kind of graphical way. And you can see like that I've been doing some changes on today, on last hour, last second change on some kind of files. And then you can obviously browse the files or compare them to a certain version or the previous version. So you can see what I have been changing. A really nice way to have an overview of what happened basically within your workspace and also who did that. It also adds here the commits to the Explorer where you have the same overview basically and the files that you have changed. Really nice for just source control integration as an addition at least. And then we have a really cool that we have been using into practice quite a lot, and that is the REST client. And this client adds the possibility to easily call REST services. So I've got some examples here where I have added, let me just show you the code that I created, which is a code unit. And I want to publish this as a web service. So I have here the XML. If I include that into my AL part, it will automatically create a tenant-based web service based on that code unit. So there are 3 methods. I want to be able to test these methods. That's the idea. And I can do that with this new extension. The next one here is I have a query. Same, this query, I have here again an XML that automatically will create that as a web service when I publish this extension. And I've got this XML port which I'm using in my code unit here to call that as a web service. Now, how do I test that? I have been publishing this already. I can do that again. Let's hope it works. If it doesn't work, you can all go home now. Well, it does. So here it is. And my web services, just trust me on that, are published. Now, I have these REST files here as well. It's not AL files, it's HTTP files. The HTTP extension makes sure that the REST client extension understands whatever is in that file at the moment. So, some examples. I've got here Azure Functions, the same Azure function that Vieko yesterday created, to show you hello world or these kind of things. And you see how that can be done. This is just a text file. I'll simply put get and then the string or the URL, and that's it. And on top of that, I can use variables. So in this way, in the REST client, I can use variables. The thing is, all the services that I have here will use the same variables. It will read the entire file, and these variables will be used. So if you have the same variable name 5 times, the last one is the value of the variable. That's something you need to get used to in the beginning. From the moment, so if I just remove this, for instance, you will see the button send request is gone. I can just say get and so on, and you see the send request appears. The REST client understands this text file, it's compiling that basically, and then from the moment it thinks that it can call that URL, and it will do that then. So I can click that, and you see it comes back with the web servers that, in this case, Vehicle has created as an Azure function. I call the same thing with a different variable name, and this is how you do variables within the REST client. And it comes back with hello y'all, and so on. And obviously you can do this on NAV web services as well. So I've got a few examples here. For a page web service, a default page web service, there is the job list somewhere. I just want to test that. And here you can see that it doesn't work. Or it does. So a SOAP request, the OData request. Yeah, it took too long. Let me check that again. Yes, 5-6 seconds for the OData request, and obviously version 4 as well, which should give me some kind of JSON. Here it is. That's all cool, but the thing that you probably mostly do is calling a web service that is based on an XML port. I hope you do that at least. Let me try to see where I have put that. Here. So this is still my query. I'm going to skip that. Trust me, it works. You have heard that a few times yesterday. There are some SOAP some SOAP requests that I would like to show you. So you remember that I needed to call a method in the code unit, and then I might want to get back the results of a certain XML port. Well, there I need to provide the header for the SOAP request. That is basically how you do that. So it's a little bit more typing. This is all that you need to foresee, the authentication, how it's basically all set up. I did put in some variables here, like for the method 1, to open my, to change my SOAP action and so on. Like that. That's the first time anyone asked me to zoom on NAV TechDays, actually. The screen is not big enough. Look, for next year. So yeah, there's a little bit more typing, but the result is that I cannot push anything anymore. What happened? Yeah, here it is. So here you have an error. Cool. Let's change. Oh no, it is not an error. I know what happened. I raise an error within my function. That's what you do. This, right? Yeah. The last one is obviously the most important one, where I call the XML port, and here you can simply see the result of your call. Really nice addition. The nice thing is that I can just make this part of my extension, and basically the testing of the web service is part of the extension as well. And that is nice. All right, so you can do a lot with the REST client. SQL Server is the same. There is SQL Server extension for VSCode, so I can basically call SQL Server stuff. For instance, have you ever noticed that your data disappeared? If you didn't, let me show you. For the SQL Server, there is first you need to connect to a SQL Server. So let's first connect. And then I already set up some connection profiles. If you don't have any, then you can set it up yourself. Then it will not have any lists here, basically, and it will guide you through a wizard to set it up. So on a dev server, I want to connect, and I want to execute this SQL statement, which is basically going to show me the content of whatever, or execute the SQL that I just do here. And that is actually looking up my companion tables of my extension. So it appears that I have one companion table for the customer for this extension, which is the app ID of my extension. Next, a union. I also want to show all the tables that I actually created, which is not a companion table, but a normal table, as you can see here, just some table. I can see if there is some data in it, and there appears to be some data in it, and yeah, not really here. Did I misclick? I misclicked. So there's no data in there. Let me quickly add some data. I will run the web client. Look at that, how easy that is. We will show that in a minute. All right. I will add quickly some data. And now our SQL statement should actually show that. Oh, no, that's wrong, although it is the execute current statement. And there is my data sum. I'm just going to publish my extension, Control F5. Let's just assume we added a code unit, whatever. I'm not interested in the client at this moment. I'm interested in the data. So let me execute this one again. Data gone. And thanks to this SQL, you can easily find out you have a problem. Next, we will see how we can solve that as well. There are snippets in this. Yeah, it starts with SQL, and there are the snippets, like if you really want to mess anything up, drop the database, and so on. There is intelligence as well, which I really like. Select star from, and look at this, all my tables of my NAV database, which is in Docker and all that. So it's nice to have that and to have a quick overview or whatever to compile something that you might want to test against. You can export as well. So if I, for instance, select star from customer, like that, this table, I execute this one. I get my customer table, and I might want to export that as either CSV, of course not, we are totally into JSON. Customers, I can save that, and here you go, I've got a customer JSON file, and you can do stuff with that. I honestly don't know what you want to do with that, but you can do something with that. Right, SQL. Another one, create GUID. You need that. Why do you need that, you think, in AL development? Why would I ever create a GUID? App ID, yeah. You can generate a manifest from a command. So let's not generate our own app IDs. But when using notifications, then you need create GUID like this. This is a simple notification, but you should include a GUID as an ID of the notification. Now, what I did, I created a simple, or I installed a simple create GUID. Where is it? Create GUID extension, and I can simply be here, Ctrl+Shift+P, create GUID. It will put it on the clipboard. I paste it, done. You don't need some kind of website to generate the GUID and manually copy over the GUID. So what does this extension do? Well, it creates a GUID. On top of that, did you hear something about Docker? These conventions? So some people, yeah, there is Docker. Are you familiar with Docker? So you all have been creating your Docker images and using Docker? Somewhat less. I'm not familiar with Docker, and Docker for me is something completely new. And at this point, Docker more looks like this for me. So It does help me when I go and in search for some Docker extensions. And there are 2 Docker extensions. There is one Docker extensions that helps you create and do whatever you want to do with scripting Docker images and stuff like that. Again, I don't know. On the other hand, there is Docker Explorer, and that does help me. So it puts these things here, where I can see, okay, which images do I have, which I can play with here locally? Which containers have I set up, and so on. So I have here a separate container thing. So apparently I've set up 2 containers with probably the same image, and yeah, I can do stuff from here. I can at least find out what I can do with Docker here, like having these statistics. Let's see how this Docker thing is doing for me at the moment, and so on. I can restart, I can remove, good one. I can start, stop, and all these kind of things. So that is nice. So really, if you are not familiar with Docker, just install them in VSCode and manage it from there. It's a really easy thing. So as said, you have either the Docker extension and you also have the Docker Explorer, which I use most to just manage and restart and delete, especially delete my Docker thing. If you want to know more on the Docker, next session is completely about Docker. It's the 3 guys that made Docker a reality for us. You really need to thank them because this is cool. Although sometimes it still looks like this. Okay. Yeah, I cannot do a session without PowerShell. So, and luckily we have a PowerShell extension within VSCode. And I tell you now, this is. Let me just take no chances and just delete this customer JSON file because I don't know how big that is and what it's going to do for my further demos. PowerShell. We are very lucky that VS Code, or at least Microsoft, is building a PowerShell extension for VS Code as well. That makes VS Code so much more powerful. And this PowerShell extension gets updated like every week. There is unbelievable how much functionality is being added. Now you have seen here already, I've got a console of PowerShell just built within my VS Code. And yeah, what I would use it for, I think it's quite easy. I obviously used it for setting up my Docker stuff. And that might be part of your solution, right? So having just a PowerShell script to set up your 2 containers, which you might need for either dev or test, is just easy. The fact that you have installed the extension within VS Code makes it you can also run it. I'm not going to run this one because it will remove and set up my containers again. But yeah, this is just part of my extension, which is really nice. A few things I would like to show you, especially the first 2 lines here. You already have some settings within your AL extension. Well, you can read them from PowerShell. You can easily read JSON files from PowerShell, and it turns the JSON file into an object, and they can very easily address the different parts within either the app.json or in the launch.json. And I think I use them in some occasions. It's probably in a different, I think here, yeah, here. So I need the app.json name for my script in this case to work. How I structure this usually is that I have one settings script where I load my variables, and then a few other scripts where I use my variables. So this is the one that I usually change, and then this is just a matter of executing it. Now remember, when we republished, we lost our data. That is not nice. So let's see how we can overcome that. So I will load my settings here. So I've got my variables now in place. And I just closed something that I didn't want to close. I should have had already installed our extension. But if I didn't, Let's test it again. It might end up in an error. You see that this is one script which is going to publish an extension on a test environment. Remember that I have two containers. One that I use for development purposes. This is the one that is set up in my launch.json. That means this is the one that I publish my extension to from the development environment. I also have a testing environment, and that's the one I might want to keep my data from. So it successfully executed. Let me see, and I have a script here to check my data as well. Let me just check if there is any data. And there is some data, the people that were sitting next to me at the moment I was actually entering this data. So, okay, let me just now create a completely new extension. I want to upgrade my test environment and install a new extension. The way you do that is you might want to update your version of your app.json. Then, if I would now build this extension and publish it to the dev server, I know already I lost my data. I just want to keep my data. So let us try to build a new extension. Control-Shift-B. And it should... Yeah, there is my new version of the extension. I can turn back to my PowerShell. And in my PowerShell, I've got an upgrade nav on test, which is basically going to take care of my container stuff. I'm using the nav container helper here. Uninstall whatever is there, publish, sync, and start nav container data upgrade. So I select everything, I press F8, I have an error, and hopefully, okay, that is not a good error. Okay, yeah, that is having the wrong number. Let's just delete this one and let's try that again. Oh, that is not going to work. Yeah, it should take that file. It's not taking that file. Build one more time. Execute the settings, and then one more time. It should take the last or the only version of the app file, which is this part, the last app file. Let me see what that is. This number 3. That's not good, man. I did save the file, but this is not working. Well, let's not go into it. Trust me, it works. Trust me, it did work. It doesn't work, obviously. Okay, you can do a lot with PowerShell, you know that. I'm just showing you a few things that don't work, but there you can do things that do work. And as I already have shown you, there is a lot of different types of file. Now, your extension is probably an AL. It contains a lot of AL files, but that doesn't need to be the only files that there is. In my extension, there are quite a lot of other files. I've got like these markup or markdown files to describe whatever demo I wanted to do. I've got JSON files. I've got these HTTP files, got PowerShell files. I've got these SQL files. And still, I can create a package file, and still, let's hope that works, I can publish that. Yeah, so it can just be embedded into your complete extension. Now, there are some extensions that are specifically for the AL language, like the AL formatter. Really nice one. Where you can, format the AL language. So just suppose there is someone in your company, but definitely not you, that creates its code like that. And say like, come on, this is not readable. Well, a simple Alt-Shift-F turns that in decent format. I can imagine that at a certain point Microsoft will include this in their own extension, but at this point there is some smart guy called Rasmus Ahn. Was that right pronounced, or is the guy here? And he is doing that. This is a really nice one. Another one is basically the AL lint. You all know Mark Brummel. He has been putting some time into, watching over our code, let's say. And I must say, Mark is not really happy with me because I have been apparently doing a very bad job. Let me show you this. He says that I have a lot of problems. Like, hey, you have unused variable here and an unused variable there, and there is some dirty code unit here with variable that is not, and so on. The green lines here, that's basically his contribution to my code. So you can easily fix your code. That is, you go to the AL lint, which I completely don't see it, and you uninstall that extension, and your code is fixed. Obviously not. It just gives you a nice overview. Oh, hey, you have a variable here, or you have used, like if I would use rec here, it would call it, hey, you have used Hungarian notation. That is not good. Okay. On top of that, it introduces what he calls refactor, what I call turn into function. So if I call this refactor, he is going to put these 3 lines here on the bottom and put that into a function. Luckily, we have this Rasmus guy that formats my code, and there we go, everything is okay again. So that is the 2 functions that we have with the AL lint, which is basically watching over our code. A good contribution. It's still in development, but you can see people are already adding AL extensions, like I have been doing actually as well. I have created a CRS AL language extension. This is a very broad name because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Basically, I want to just try out TypeScript, and it turned out that now I'm doing like installing my modules. Yeah, why not? But the other ones are quite useful. I tend to use them, which is Ctrl-Shift-P with the CRS thing. You find out which comments you have, and there is a run thing where you can run any kind of object in a certain client, even a Windows client, if you are not using Docker at least. But here, just use bijvoorbeeld. For example, the tablet client, you can select the types that is supported by the tablet client to run the page 50,100, and it's going to open that exact page. It's a nice one, which I tend to use quite a lot. Else, you always need to change the launch. Yeah, that is a little bit more cumbersome. What I also have included, which should work. Let me fix this. Let me fix this. Is you see here? This is all completely messed up. This is not the way how you should call your files. You need to include, in my opinion, the object type, the object name, and also the object ID to have some kind of clear overview of which object numbers I have used. And for that, there is this reorganize all files, which asks for confirmation and is going to put that in the objects folder, in the code unit, and it basically put all the files in a structured way, called it all the same, not all the same, but at least like it should. And now you have kind of like an overview, like, oh, I forgot here an object number. At least that is a start. And that is my extension basically. Now you can contribute to these extensions. Please do. I know that Rasmus, Mark, and I are very keen to learn what you think of it, what does not work, what we should improve. And you can actually also do that on the REST client and all these kinds of things. And let me quickly show you how you can do that. Just go to your extension that you're using and you say, hey, Mark, this doesn't work. Just click on his extension, click here. You will go to the marketplace. And then there usually there is some kind of open issues you can click to. This then again usually is a GitHub and you can create an issue there. Please do that. I mean, it just makes our development life for the entire community better. Or you can create your own extension. Did any one of you ever create your own extension for VSCode? Not for AL, for VSCode. You did you? The creator of the AL extensions is here, and he indeed created an extension. Well, you can do that. It's just a matter of getting your way through either JavaScript. For vehicle, probably that is not a problem. For me, that's a big problem. And luckily, there is also a way to do this with TypeScript, which is what I think a little bit easier, at least for me. How do you get started? You install Node.js. You need this runtime to be able to either get the packages that you need to create your extension, but also to debug and all that. You need Yeoman. Yeoman is a code generator. And for Yeoman, there is a specific code generated for VSCode extensions. So basically, you start off with some generated hello world kind of thing that you can start and change into your own extension. So this is how it looks like. So let's try this out. And I really mean that. Let's just try this out. I will create a new folder. I don't know why I would do that. Let me just I need to be in some kind of folder. Let me try. Not the downloads. Come on. I need a command line. Documents. That's a good one. And the first thing you do, if you installed all that, so Node.js and Yo and Yeoman, that's it, and the code generator, you can call Yo code. Yo code, and this is going to start Yeoman, and it wants to generate basically code for me to start creating a VS Code extension. And he asked me, okay, what do you want to do? You want to create a TypeScript code? Vehicle would say, of course not. That's not cool. JavaScript is cool. I don't create JavaScript extension, and you can do some other things here as well. So I will create a TypeScript extension. Most of the extensions are created in TypeScript. Basically, TypeScript compiles to JavaScript, and that's then what Vehicle does. What's the name of your extension? I will call it Google. I want a Google. What is your identifier? Yeah, let's call it Google. What description of your extension? Yeah, well, Google. And what was the publisher? That's Waldo. Do you want to use Git? Of course not. Don't want to use Git. Who wants to use Git anyway? Come on. And now it's preparing my extension, basically generating the code. This will not take too long. There it is. So I should have a Google map now. There it is. And I can open code. And this is where we start. Our very first extension is done. Woohoo. It generated quite a lot. So all these files, node modules, which is basically libraries that I can use inside my development, and all that. So as I said, I want to Google. And just so I want to define that this extension will be used for Google. And I start off with opening the package.json. This package.json is your manifest. You see, this manifest thing is not an AL thing. It's quite being used in multiple environments. So here, this manifest, I need to define that I will contribute to not only a hello world thing, but I will contribute some other comments as well. So the first comment, and I've been using snippets here to type too much. The first comment I want to add is search current word on Google. The idea is I am in my development environment. I select or I'm on a word. I don't know what that word is. I want to Google that word. Yeah. So now I defined that, but obviously I didn't write any code. I just defined to the manifest, like, this is something that I will contribute. So that means I need to write code. There is something called in the source of directory, there is a file called extension.ts. This is where your rock and roll is going on. Right? This is where you will create your code. And you can see there is always an activate function. This is the function that will be called when you activate your extension. Aha, I need to activate my extension. I might want to define that as well in the manifest, and there are some activation events here. And you see, my extension will only be activated from the moment I call the say hello command. Well, no, I don't want that. This is a Google extension. I want to use it all the time. So I'm just using all events to activate my extension. Okay, so that will be called. And now what I want to do is write my code. This is going to be the most simple way to write your code, obviously not the most structured way to write your code. I only have 10 minutes, so I might not have time to dive into that. So, this is first line of code. Basically, I create a new command, I register that, and the code that I will be executing is open, which basically is a start in PowerShell, or what is that in CAL? Yeah, opening a hyperlink, basically. And you see that doesn't really work because I've got some red lines here. Well, that's because I did not install this library. It doesn't know the open library. So you might want to add that library to your extension. And you do that with npm, which is the Node Packet Manager. Because I installed Node.js, I have this Node Packet Manager as well. And I can install the OPN library, which includes the open, the functionality basically that I need. What it did now, it should have added, let me refresh this, the OPN library to my node module. So now I can code against that. That is number one. Number two, I need to make sure that I have a variable that knows the open. So actually the open variable. I declare an open variable, and that is basically the library from OPN. So now this open is okay. I will be able to call this. Then I need some logic to get this word. And the idea is I'm on a word with the cursor. Well, select that word and use that word as a search in Google. And you know what? I like internet, and it was just plain old on internet. There is a get word function that I will add, and you see it's clearly going to select the word and then provide that word here as a return variable. You see? Yes, everyone sees. Okay, you believe me. Okay, done. Let's test this. F5 builds my extension. And it says, congratulations, your extension Google is now active. That's already a good start. So let's create a file. Let's see if our get word works. Ctrl+Shift+P, I should have a Google. Search Google. And there you go. Google is searching for the word that I was having. And it also selected the word, basically. Cool? Nah, not cool enough. Nah, this is not cool enough. Let's try something else. Let's search anything on Google. So I register a new command, search anything. In this case, I actually want to input from the user within the command palette, basically, with the command. So I add that as here as a register comment, but obviously, let's stop this one. I need to add this as a contribution as well. So let's contribute here a second one, which is search anything on Google. And you see here that I'm using the VSCode API to show me an input box. And with that input box, I will basically do the same as I have been doing here, just opening the URL. Let's try that. So I should have now a second command. Ctrl-Shift-P, Google, something on Google. This is my input box. Let's search for let's find Waldo, and here he is. And this is the most basic way to start off with creating your own extension. There's a little bit more to it. You need to include your README file decently, obviously. Describe your extension, what are your contributions, how does it work. For instance, for the REST client, there is a very big README file, but it basically is a complete manual on how you use the REST client extension. You need that. I mean, people need to know how they are going to use your extension. Package.json, which is the manifest, main part is there that you need to add your contributions. You can contribute more than comments. You can contribute snippets as well. You can contribute callers, debuggers, and all that. One thing that I didn't do well is I actually depend on this OPN thing, so I need to add my OPN to the dependencies as well. Oh, it's already there. Okay. It's already there. Cool. Wouldn't know why, it's already there. So source directory gets your source. I put everything in the extension.ts. Please don't do that. That is just not the right way to do that. Not really clean. What you can do, and let me show you something else. A recent folder here. So this is the code from the AL language extension. I'm not saying that this is right, but you see here that is a lot more TS files. And in my extension.ts, which is still the one that's going to activate all my comments, well, it's a little cleaner. I will call out to the different files basically that include the code specifically for a certain function. But in any case, extension.ts is where it all starts. Let me skip because I only have 3 minutes and I want to show you this. Now, this extension, and I don't have any money in this, but I did struggle through quite some stuff that I don't want you to struggle with anymore. It is on GitHub, so you can just download it and do whatever you want with it. And there is already solutions for instance, reading your settings in VSCode, reading the launch.json, reading the app.json, and using that as settings within whatever you are trying to do. It is a solution, and thank you, Jonas, for how to call PowerShell. This is there already as well. So please don't put too much time in finding out the stuff that is already being put time in. Let's be also try to be as productive as possible. The open URL, which idea I got from Tobias Fenster. Yeah, there are, as you can see already, quite some stuff that has been found out. Please download it, look at it, and I have an extra download as well. So there's one quote of the previous day I would like to show you, which is Viego, obviously, who said, Viego is absolutely my far most favorite development environment, beyond any doubt. I saw during a session a big red cross over the VSCode thing. It didn't really mean that, it was just VSCode for Azure functions. If he could, he would very much use VSCode for that. I like to hear that, especially from someone like him. Like he has been like diving into a lot of languages, and if you can do that with VSCode, and his favorite tool is VSCode, I think that's a very good statement. Which ends my session on, did I at least a little bit rock and roll this VSCode thing? Okay. And do you have questions? I have t-shirts. And I have nothing to throw, so only the t-shirts. Anyone? Questions? Let me see. Nope, I don't have anything to throw. Oh, the throwing part is coming. Wait a minute. Yeah, here.
Excuse me.
Kunt dat gooien.
Yeah, so obviously this new environment allows for building your own extensions for IL as well.
Sorry?
So the environment allows you to build your own extensions for doing stuff with IL.
Yeah.
Is it just TypeScript that you can use and JavaScript for building extensions, or can you use like, I don't know, .NET and link it somehow into VSCode to build extension for managing IL?
As far as I know, it's only TypeScript and JavaScript that you can use, basically because it runs in that environment. Oh, okay, yes.
I have one question. Is there something for all the NAV code and VSCode? Can we use VSCode to do something with all the NAV code, not the AEL code?
Well, go to that session from CERN that is going to be on 1:30. He uses VS Code for source control management, the old C side, the very old C side that we have. So yes, it is absolutely possible, but not obviously to compile, right?
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but more
You want a t-shirt?
a tip. No. When you use Visual Studio Code, by default, it tries to open files as UTF-8 encoding. If you're ever going to use it on old C-side text objects, they are exported as OEM. But if you accidentally save them in UTF-8, you've got a big problem. So be careful with that.
Okay, I actually did that, and so yeah, maybe I was
It doesn't
really lucky.
always recognize the encoding correctly.
Okay. Another one, but I want to throw this. Can you have a minute? I'm going to throw this. Yes.
Got it. In all these sessions about Visual Studio Code, I've never seen anyone activate their developer license. Is that no longer really necessary or something?
Again.
When do we need to activate our developer license?
How do you mean? How to activate?
To see the code in the older versions. Before you can open a code unit, you need to switch to your developer license, or if it's not activated on the service tier or on the database. But now we just open the code and we download the symbols and we can just see the code like that. Is that no longer necessary?
Yeah, it is necessary to code against. You need the symbols.
Yes,
right?
but the developer
if you need the
license.
development license to download the symbols, I have absolutely no idea. I never tested that with the customer license. So I never had that question in my mind either. So
we can develop without the developer license then?
Yeah, but in the development environment you can, but you need the symbols. And the question there is, can you download the symbols without the development license? Maybe.
You are not developing on customers' database, you are developing on developers' database.
Thank you. The symbols the symbol files does not contain the sources as such. It only contains the public surface of the object. So the methods, the public methods, the fields. So it's not the source files per se you are downloading, it's the symbol.
What is preventing our customers from trying to develop on their database?
You still, right now you still need the developer license, because the license is checked on the server. If you're only running a Cronus license, you have the demo license, you have the 50 objects to develop against.
But it's a good idea to stop your customers to develop on their database. I totally with you on that one. Yes. Yeah, here. Oh. Yeah.
Does it work? Yeah. Do you think it's still the wisest idea to separate your folders just by the object type?
Why not?
Sure.
You can. It's up to you. I do that. Else, yeah. Why wouldn't it be a wise idea to filter or to search?
Maybe it's not optimal. Look, is the all code is separated, yeah, by type, but in the new environment, it's not only CL objects that's all in there. So maybe there's some insights or guidance about it.
Yeah. Well, it's up to you. You can put your code wherever you want in your.
Yeah, I do understand. I'm just asking a question specifically for you. Do you see any different way of managing your folder?
No, because basically this is how I put it in my extension. So this is the way I would like to do that. Yeah, at this point. Now, obviously, there was not that much experience with building extension in this environment. So maybe we will come up with some other way on how to do that. I don't know. This works for us at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Last question, last T-shirt at least. Oh, thank you so much for sitting over there. Yeah. Okay.
I have one dilemma for this Visual Studio Code.
You have one dilemma with VSCode?
Yes.
Okay, only one dilemma. That's really good.
Does this mean that we can forget for programming in development environment with CLA code? And that in the future we only work with Visual Studio Code? I don't understand.
Don't understand the question.
Okay, sorry. I have a tremor.
Yeah. What? He's asking if it's only going to be Visual Studio. In the future? Well, the extension is VSCode, so yeah, that's going to be VSCode only. What I tried to convince you about, that's a really good thing.
Okay, I understand that. I just ask, would we development anything in development environment with CLA code, or are possibilities only with Visual Studio Code? The programming in the future.
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Okay, never mind.
There were not 5 people to. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Are we ever going to use the old development environment for the new AL development? Well, no.
What? What's the last question?
What?
Yes, everything is. I can answer that. Is that mine? Okay, I will just shout out. Seaside is long-term going away. We're moving to VSCode for everything, including the base app. Right now, the base app is still developed using Seaside, but the goal is definitely to move everything to the new language, to AL, only using VSCode.
Is this means that we are going to develop reports in Visual Studio Code?
Yes, for everything. Yes. We don't have a timeline. I mean, we need to. we of course need to be able to compile the entire base app. We need to have the same functionality. And I mean, so it on all aspects is a experience which is sufficient or better.
Any other questions for Esmond? I have no T-shirts anymore. I will not throw it, please. I can try, but people will get it probably. Okay, thank you very much, and yeah, see you next time.